this theme lesson because at the end of this we'll be making our own musical instrument. Actually, it'll be a musical kazoo that we're making. So for this lesson, once we get done, all you're going to need is either a paper towel roll that you can cut in half or a full paper roll, one of the two. You're going to need wax paper. You will need wax paper. Foil's not going to work. I don't think that parchment paper will work. Probably is best to with wax paper. Plastic wrap will definitely not work. I'm going to use some scissors to help me cut the wax paper. You're going to need a rubber band, just one rubber band for each kazoo you're going to make, and then crayons, paint, markers, whatever you want to use to decorate your kazoo, make it all pretty, all that jazz. So this is going to be really, really fun, very simple. But first, we're going to talk about music. And I'm sure some of you guys are probably wondering, how on earth is music scientific? It's music, it's artistic, right? Not scientific. Well, actually, music and a lot of things that you do in art class is very scientific in the actions that you do. And music is definitely no different. Because when we talk about music, we're really going to be talking about sound and how does sound travel. You know, how do we hear sound? How do we know what notes we're hearing when we play music and all that stuff? Well, first, sound travels through matter. So through objects, through the table, through the guitar when you're plucking the strings, through the keyboard when you're playing the piano, through a door, you're gonna knock on the door. Sound travels through matter. If you're swimming the summertime, and you go underwater and you're screaming at each other, you can kind of hear each other a little bit because the sound is traveling through the water. So how does sound travel through the matter? Well, it's actually quite simple. Whenever sound happens, it always starts with a mechanical movement. So such as like, I'm gonna knock on this table, or if you're gonna pluck the strings on a guitar, or you're gonna press down the keys in the keyboard. It always starts with that movement. Once you start with that movement, once that movement has begun, the molecules in that matter that's next to whatever you're doing start to vibrate. So, for instance, I'm knocking on this table, right? The molecules in this table that's underneath my knuckles have started to vibrate. And when those molecules underneath my knuckles start to vibrate, that's causing the molecules around those molecules to vibrate, and then more molecules vibrate. And slowly sound will travel through this table so that I can hear it. Which is how whenever someone knocks at your front door and they're knocking on the door, you can hear it inside the house because the molecules in that door are vibrating, and it's letting the sound of someone knocking on the door go through the door so that you can hear that someone's there, which is really cool, right? And the same thing happens if you're pressing the keys on the keyboard, or you're plucking the strings on the guitar. The molecules are vibrating and it's causing the sound to move. Now let's say we go into space. There isn't any matter in space, which is why it's so quiet, because there's no way for sound to move in space, which is really cool if you think about it, that we can hear things on Earth, but we can't hear things in space because there's no matter for sound to move in, which is kind of cool. Now, that's how sound travels, but how do we hear sound? And once again, it's actually kind of simple. In our ears, we have a thin layer of skin that's just over our eardrums. And so whenever sound happens and we hear, let's say we hear someone knocking at the door, and I hear sound happening, then that sound, the sound wave, is causing the delicate layer of skin over my eardrum to vibrate. And when that vibrates, my brain is like, oh, hey, there's a sound happening. There's a sound. What is that sound? And my brain then decides, hey, the sound of someone knocking on the door or on a table is different than someone playing keys on a piano. And that's different than someone plucking the strings on a guitar. So my brain decides how each sound is different. But it always starts with the skin over my eardrum vibrating whenever it hears sound. Once again, it's really cool, right? So, one part of measuring sounds, we have to measure the frequency. And this helps our brain, this helps us know how high and how low the sounds are. So for instance, like you're playing the piano and you play the keys on one end and this really low sound, and you play keys on the other end, it's a really, really high difference between the two sounds? That is how we have to know it by its frequency. And that is by how fast that sound wave is moving. And I have an example, some pictures here with an example. Hopefully I will try to, move this out way real quick. Hopefully I will try to explain this in a way that will make sense to you guys. I will do my best. Okay, but basically we know this by the sound waves and by its frequency, which is how fast the sound waves are moving. So let's say you're at the beach, right? You're watching the ocean go back and forth, and you see the waves go up and down. That's what sound waves look like. They're literally going up and down, okay? So when a sound is traveling and it's a really, really, really high sound, then that means that sound wave is moving super, super fast. That means that frequency, which is how fast the sound wave is moving, is oscillating, which is a fancy science word for moving back and forth. So that frequency of the sound wave is moving super, super fast, and that is giving us a really, really high sound. Now let's say you're plucking the strings on the guitar, and you pluck with the really, really low notes, and you hear just this really low sound. Then that means the sound wave, the frequency of that sound wave is oscillating slowly, which is giving us a lower sound. So we have, when we hear high sounds, the sound waves are oscillating really fast, which is giving us a high sound. And when we hear low sounds, the sound wave is giving us, the sound wave is oscillating very slowly, which is giving us a lower sound. Cool, right? Well, when we play music though, we need to know more than just high sounds and low sounds. Because if you ever are in music class, or you ever decide to learn how to play an instrument at some point in your life, and you're going to look at a piece of music, you're not going to see play high, now play low, now play high, now play low. You're not going to see that. You're not going to see sound waves. You're not going to see little pictures. What you're going to see are notes. So how on earth do we tell which notes to play, and what is this happening here on the musical scale? So basically, these notes all give a certain kind of pitch, because not all sounds are really, really high, and not all sounds are really, really low. Some are kind of in between. Some are higher, but not really high. Some are lower, but not really low. So these notes, they name each pitch that we hear when we hear sound. And if you were to learn how to play music, you would learn what's called the chromatic scale. This is what it is. And this is what most musicians in the world use to play music, which is really cool if you think about it, because you can play music here in America, you can look at the same notes and you know exactly what they're saying. And then you can go over to China and someone can give you that same exact piece of paper, the same exact piece of music, and you automatically know what you're playing, because it's the same scale, same chromatic scale all around the world, which is really cool. But in this scale, they have 7 notes. And it is C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. And if you know your alphabet, which I'm hoping you do, you know that it's A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. You have the first 7 letters of the alphabet make up these 7 notes in a chromatic scale. And that's it. And these give the sounds of really kind of lower and kind of higher. And these 7 notes this group of 7 make up an octave. If I were to take this paper off this board, and I were basically copy and paste it again and put it right here, I would see, once again, the same 7 notes, that comes a little higher, because as you can see, it's kind of going up. So if I were to once again copy and paste this scale and put it right here, the notes would they would start again with C right here, and they would just keep going up. So D, E, F, G, A, and B. And they'll just keep going up and keep going up and keep going up. If I were to copy and paste this paper and I would put it down here, I would put it lower, because I would once again do the same 7 letters, but they would go lower. So if I start to C here, next one would be B, A, G, F, E, D, and C. And they just kind of keep going lower and lower and lower and lower. So if you look at a piece of paper, if you look at a piece of music, you will see the scales, you'll see all these letters, they will repeat C, D, E, F, G, A, and B, again and again and again and again, but they would go either higher or they would go either lower. Make sense? And once again, each set is a set of octaves, okay? Makes sense? And obviously the higher we get, the higher these notes go, then the faster the sound wave travels, which is giving us the higher sound. And as these notes go lower and lower and lower, the slower the sound wave is traveling, which is giving us the low sound, okay? So does that make a little bit of sense? And as you can see, music is actually very scientific if you think about it. So like I said, today we are going to be making our own musical kazoo. It's going to be really fun. First thing you're going to do is you can either do this at the beginning or the end. I'll probably do this at the end myself. What you're going to do is you're going to take either your paper towel roll. If you're going to use paper towel roll, you want to cut it in half, or as close to half as you can get. Maybe you can share it with a sibling or something. Or you can each have your own toilet paper rolls, and you're going to decorate it first, or you can just do what I do. And we're going to get some wax paper here. And I'm just going to cut this wax paper. It'll be a little bit easier than trying to tear it. Okay. I can take some of this off. And I'm going to put it over one end. I'm going to make sure it's kind of tight over that end, really. I want to make sure the wax paper is pretty tight over it, honestly. And I'm going to take my rubber band. And I'm going to rubber band it so it stays securely on. If I can do it without. Okay, there it goes. That's actually too tight. Never mind, that's too tight. And this is where it'll get a little tricky because you want to make sure it's nice and tight on there without it being crazy loosey-goosey. So I'm going to do that over there. So once you have that, now you have your kazoo right there. That's your kazoo. And now you can hum or sing a tune into the kazoo. Like that. And you have a musical instrument. And like I said, you can decorate it, make it all pretty. I'm probably going to decorate mine, and I'll show you guys my decorations here in a few minutes, okay? All right, so I decorated my instrument, my little kazoo. Honestly, I just drew a bunch of hearts and flowers on mine because I like hearts and flowers, and I know all the boys are not rolling their eyes at me. That's okay, they can roll their eyes as much as they want. I like my kazoo. But now that you have decorated your kazoo however you want to, you can make as many of these kazoos as you want, although with asking parents before you make more than 5 because it could be a little annoying for them. But now you can play your favorite songs on the radio and hum your way along with them. And you can actually, these are really awesome because they help you kind of pay closer attention to how the wax paper is vibrating, which is kind of a really great example of how the sound waves vibrate through the matter, because you kind of feel it as you're humming along. You kind of feel the wax paper vibrating a little bit, which is really cool. And it can, once again, help you as you are learning about sound waves and how music works and how sound moves through our world. Hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.